The Washington Blade published the names of all 110,000 or so Marylanders who signed the petition to repeal the law recognizing same-sex marriages in my state. The petition that was started, incidentally, by Neil Parrott, my representative from the Maryland House of Delegates. I want to show you something. This is a PDF of the names that signed the petitions, and that right there, that highlighted name, that's my grandfather. He's dead now. He died about 2 weeks ago. We weren't close. I didn't go to his memorial service. I didn't go to his funeral. I didn't shed any tears when I learned that he was dead. His death makes very little difference to me in my life as it is, but it's a little upsetting to see his name on this list. Not because I'm surprised, because I'm not surprised. He's not the only person I know on the list. He is the only member of my immediate family who signed the petition. But a lot of other people from my hometown signed the petition. A lot of other people from Hagerstown who I know signed the petition. People I went to high school with signed the petition. Members of my wife's family signed the petition. Nor is he the only member of my family I've ever had a reason to be embarrassed about. My great-grandfather on my dad's side was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and I remember hearing the story from my dad of cleaning out the attic after he died and finding his robe and his hood folded up neatly, kept there after all those years. Pap Lashley, as I called him, my mom's dad, was probably the most overtly Christian person that I've ever known. And I don't mean that in terms of his character. I'm not paying him a compliment. I mean, you met him and within 5 seconds he made you very aware of his Christianity. He was a preacher. He founded churches, and he pastored churches right up until the end. One of the few clear, strong memories of him that I have is of the way he would lead us in prayers when he would come to visit us when I was a child. He didn't come to visit often, but whether it was around a holiday or if he just happened to be passing through, before he left, he would always say a prayer in the living room where we had all gathered to visit. And even as a child, that struck me as odd. It was one of the first times I noticed that I thought there was something funny about religion, something odd about it, something not to be trusted. Because my family growing up was nominally Christian. We had a brief interval where we would go to church. It lasted less than a year. But we never prayed, we never said grace before meals. We were not religious really at all, except for just identifying as Christians and professing some general sort of belief in Christianity and the Bible and Jesus, etc. So when Pap Lashley would lead us in prayers like this, it struck me as odd. We never asked him to do that. We never really got anything from it. He was doing it for him. He was doing it for himself, to make a show of his piety. And now I look back on it and I find it just silly and ridiculous. And at the time, I just thought it was, like, why is he doing this? It just struck me as strange. He was the only person I ever knew who did that. And if I've left you with the impression in saying that I am bringing up his Christianity in conjunction with his name being on this list in order to suggest that one might have something to do with the other, good, because that's exactly what I mean to do. I have heard arguments from people against same-sex marriage that have not been explicitly religious, but very, very, very few. Almost every time I have heard someone speak out against same-sex marriage, it has been on the basis of their religion. People believe that same-sex marriage ought to be outlawed because God doesn't like it. And I have very little doubt that that is the reason why my maternal grandfather chose to sign this petition. He signed it. He decided to put his name to this effort to relegate his gay fellow Marylanders to second-class citizenship, because he felt that's what his God, his bigoted, hateful, petty God, wanted him to do. And knowing the man and knowing the area in which I grew up, the region of the state in which I grew up and in which I still live, Western Maryland, it's not surprising. We are the region of the state which consistently votes against environmental regulations, progressive taxation, civil rights issues like same-sex marriage. We are constantly having to be coerced and cajoled and dragged into the present by the rest of the state. We are an anchor weighing the rest of Maryland down. So it's not surprising, but it's upsetting. And yet, alongside that feeling of upset, alongside that disappointment, it also fills me with a feeling of determination, the feeling of urgency to stand up against this, to put my foot down, to make my stand, to stake my claim on the other side of this, to say, I'm not like him. He's not like me. This is not what I want. This is not the world that I want to leave behind. I don't have children. I don't plan ever to have children. I don't want children. But I want future generations. I want the humans who live here after me to have a better world, a better state, a better country than the one that my grandfather wanted to leave behind for me. I don't want to see his religious-born bigotry. I don't want to see his Christian authoritarianism written into the laws of our state. I want something better than that. I want a state where people like him are free to believe whatever they want and say whatever they want about gay people, about how awful gay marriage is, about what a sin it is, about how it's an abomination unto God. And I also want people who disagree with that to have the freedom to live their lives free from it, to not have that bigotry, that intolerance written into the laws of the state in which they live and affecting their lives and limiting their potential and limiting their choices. I don't want people to be denied the right to marry the person that they love because someone else's religion says it shouldn't be allowed, and enough people got together and signed a petition and got that passed. I don't want that to happen. I think the very notion of subjecting civil rights to popular referendum is repugnant to me. I don't think we should even have to do this. We shouldn't even have to vote against this in November. But we do have to vote against it. We have to. And those of you from Maryland who are watching this, I beseech you to go vote in November and to vote for same-sex marriage and to vote against the cause of the people who signed this petition. This must fail. This must. We can't allow this to succeed. We cannot allow people like my grandfather, like Neil Parrott, like these 110,000 other people who have acted to impose their bigotry, their religious beliefs on other people outside of their churches. We cannot allow them to succeed. And if you check this list, and there's a link to it in the description box, if you check this list and you see the name of someone that you know, a friend, a coworker, someone in your family who has signed it, have a word. Ask them what their justification is. Ask them why they chose to sign this petition and why they intend to vote this way in November. Just have a word. See what you can do. I'm not going to tell you what to say. Think of something. But just have a word. Talk to them. Let them know that you are against it. And let them know why you're against it. I think it's important. I'm not much for calls to action. I don't do this sort of thing. I think it's a little presumptuous, and I usually think it's a waste of time. But seeing my grandfather's name on this list, I have an urge to stand up and just say, no! No! This can't happen. This can't happen. And even if it fails, even if these 110,000 people get what they want, and thousands of gay Marylanders see those rights, those long overdue rights that they received this year, taken away before they even go into effect, even if that happens, I want the fight against that to be a part of my legacy. I want the fight against that to be a part of what I leave behind when I die, unlike the legacy that my grandfather has left behind.